Hello everyone and welcome to more political chatter. We're doing another 2024 election prediction. This time it's between Joe Biden and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now you have likely heard of Marjorie Taylor Greene. I do believe that the majority of Americans have. I saw some poll, I think she was at 60% in September, and it's only grown from that. But she is a U.S. representative from the state of Georgia, and she is known for being very far right. She is a Republican, and she promotes QAnon, and she believes that the 2020 election was stolen for Donald Trump. Well, at least she says that. At least she says that she believes that, and she is extremely radical, right? So, of course, not a supporter of President Biden. That's who's facing off against Marjorie Taylor Greene. This time. Now Biden's approval ratings are down, but Marjorie Taylor Greene, just how radical she is, that's more of a disadvantage than Biden's 43, 42, 44% approval rating. So let's get right into it. States like California and Washington, Hawaii, Illinois, Maryland, New York, Massachusetts, and Vermont, Maine's first. These are all states and districts that will go solidly for Biden. Then states like Oregon, New Jersey, Delaware, Connecticut, Rhode Island, these are in D.C., but these are all states that have a shot of going likely for a very popular Republican, with the exception of Delaware. I just forgot to give that to Biden because it is his home state. It will not go likely. But with how radical Marjorie Taylor Greene is, there's no shot of these being likely. These are all states that will strongly reject Marjorie Taylor Greene. These are all states that went solidly for Biden in 2020, and Marjorie Taylor Greene will only be less popular than Donald Trump. I mean, if we go back to the 2020 map, all these states, Oregon, Delaware, New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, all these states went solidly for Joe Biden. Now, moving on, let's go to safe states for Marjorie Taylor Greene, I suppose. Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, and Montana. I'm really debating whether or not to give make Montana likely for Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I actually think I am. If Trump won 16.4%, sure, Biden is going to be less popular than he was in 2020, but still, Marjorie Taylor Greene, her unpopularity trumps Biden's unpopularity. Alright, Marjorie Taylor Greene, in simple form, Marjorie Taylor Greene is less popular than Biden. I'll give Montana likely for Marjorie Taylor Greene. I think Kansas will also be likely. It went likely for Donald Trump in 2020, 14.7%. I think it would be very narrow once again. Oklahoma, South Dakota, and North Dakota, I do not see. They are known for voting for the Republican on the presidential ballot. Nebraska at large will not flip. Nebraska's third will go solidly. Nebraska's second went solidly for Trump Nebraska's first went solidly for, went likely. I'm misspeaking. Went likely for Donald Trump in 2020. So, part of me does want to, but I don't know. I don't think that Marjorie Taylor Greene in this district, since it's such a conservative district, I don't think she's going to do that badly. I don't think she'll do that badly because it's such a Trumpian conservative district. And with Biden's unpopularity, I think this is a district, one of the rare districts or states where Biden's unpopularity is going to be higher than Marjorie Taylor Greene's. So I do think Nebraska's first district will be solidly, if that made sense. Sorry, I was kind of just rambling on there. Anyway, let's go down south. Louisiana, Arkansas, and Missouri. Missouri almost went likely for Trump in 2020, but still, I don't see it being likely, because this is another state where plus Marjorie Taylor Greene comes from the state of Georgia. She comes from the South, so she will do a bit better in the South. Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia. I don't see these states being likely. South Carolina will be likely. We go back to 2020, Trump won by 10%? 11.7%, 11.7 points. Marjorie Taylor Greene, I do think would do worse here than Trump in 2020, but Maine at large is likely for Biden, by the way, but I don't think it's going to shift enough to make it lean. I don't think it's going to shift 5 more points to make it lean, just because Marjorie Taylor Greene does come right next door from Georgia, so she will turn out a few more voters here. Alright, Alaska I do think would go for Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean, I think it's going to be pretty narrow. I mean, it goes to Trump by 10 points in 2020, so I think this could be a bit closer. I think she'll win it by 5 to 6%. I see Biden doing very better here than Marjorie Taylor Greene. But anyway, all right, let's see. Indiana, I do think would go to Marjorie Taylor Greene, but it's definitely going to be likely, and I think it could go lean. Because remember, Trump, this is a state that is becoming more Democratic. It's growing in population, and like Arizona, like Texas, like Georgia, we know that that means it is becoming more Democratic, because in metropolitan areas, more people are moving there. So, and I mean, Trump won it solidly in 2020. I think, I mean, it's a fairly liberal state. I think he won it just by a solid margin, just because his running mate Mike Pence is from there, so that definitely added something. This time it's Marjorie Taylor Greene. Mike Pence will not be the running mate, surely, after, that whole thing. So Indiana, I don't know. I think Marjorie Taylor Greene will be able to hang on to it, but I do think it will be by a likely margin. The states of Iowa and Ohio, I mean, they're kind of tough. I mean, going back to 2008, these were both Obama states. Iowa by a likely margin and Ohio by a lean margin. I mean, going to 2012, he's the same thing, likely and lean. Then in 2020, they shift to Trump, both likely. And then 2020, they stay in that column, likely. So this shows that they are two pretty conservative states. They barely shifted to the left in 2020. From 2016 to 2020, they barely shifted to the left. But Marjorie Taylor Greene is extremely radical. She basically promotes violence with the QAnon posts that she reposts basically, and many parents, I don't see parents turning out for Marjorie Taylor Greene all that much. These are the parents who voted for Obama in 2008 and 2012, then switched to Trump in 2016. I mean, Iowa, I do think would stay with Marjorie Taylor Greene. I think I'm going to give it to her by a tilt margin. I think this is going to be very close. But it shows that Trumpian ideals are very popular in these two states. But moving on to Ohio, this is a state with even more parents. And I mean, really, I see it going to Biden. I think it's going to go to him by I'll make it a lean margin. Also, I mean, there's many suburbs in the state of Ohio, plus there's many cities. There's a large portion of African Americans in the cities who will turn out for Biden, as they did in 2020, and that's just what the Biden campaign needs. But Iowa, I might be wrong, but I do think that Iowa would be Taylor Greene. Alright, moving on to the state of New Mexico, another state with many, that is Maine second, New Hampshire, I think it's going to go likely for Biden. I think he might even do better here than he did in 2020, just because another state with a lot of parents, a lot of suburbs, and parents are going to turn out for Biden because of how much they would fear Marjorie Taylor Greene as president. Same with Virginia. I think he would do just as well here as he did in 2020. Glenn Youngkin won the governorship. He's a Republican, but he's not Marjorie Taylor Greene. He is extremely far from Marjorie Taylor Greene, much more moderate than Marjorie Taylor Greene, much more appealing than Marjorie Taylor Greene. Moving on to, let's go to Texas. Texas is very tough for me. It really is. I mean, with that minority vote, I really see it. I think it's going to be very narrow. I see them really backing away from Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republicans and Democrats. I think that Texas is going to go to Joe Biden. Even with his unpopularity, I know he's unpopular, but with Marjorie Taylor Greene, so many people will back away from the Republican Party. She is so radical. Republicans who voted for Trump in 2020 will fear for their children with Marjorie Taylor Greene as president. Many of them really, really will. Texas, I do think would go to Biden, and I think it's going to be by a tilt margin. I think this will be extremely narrow, but I will give Texas's 38 electoral votes to the President Biden. Moving on to Nebraska 2nd District, I think that this will be likely for Biden. I mean, if it was in 2020, I really see, I see him increasing in the Omaha District, Nebraska 2nd District. All right, moving on. Let's go to, whoops. All right, let's go to, how about we go to the Southwest? New Nevada, I think it's going to go to Biden by a likely margin. I think he's going to win over 5% here. I mean, going back to 2016, Hillary won by 2.4%. Then it goes to Biden by 2.4%. I mean, really, I'm sorry. I'm at a loss of words. I mean, that just shows. I mean, saying that they went to Hillary, I mean, by a lean margin, that means that Marjorie Taylor Greene will just do awful in the state. This is a pretty liberal state, and I really see them, like Texas, backing away from Marjorie Taylor Greene. In New Mexico and Colorado, let's see. I mean, this is just a debate of whether or not to give it solidly for Biden or not. I think that Colorado will go solidly for Biden, but I do think that New Mexico will stay likely for Biden. I mean, just because of these votes in 2020, he won a bit more in Colorado than New Mexico, and there's a lot of young progressives, mostly college-educated progressives in the state of Colorado, and I definitely see them pretty much hating Marjorie Taylor Greene. I see them turning out just to turn against Marjorie Taylor Greene. Arizona, I think it's going to be likely for Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean, they're a very purple state. I mean, they have 2 Democratic senators and they have 1 Republican governor. I mean, all of which are pretty popular. I mean, she's just so radical, and minorities will turn out against her because of the comments about QAnon, all that, and yeah, I mean, Biden will win more than 5% in many of these states. I mean, it's a simple set. Even though he is unpopular, so many Republicans will stay home. I mean, so many Democrats will turn out for Biden to vote against Marjorie Taylor Greene. The Democrats should be praying that Marjorie Taylor Greene runs and wins the 2024 Republican nomination, because that could bring Biden to victory. And Biden is not winning against many Republicans. And Biden has already won this election with 290 electoral votes. Anyway, Minnesota, I do think would go solidly for Biden. I mean, I think he could, I'm going to make it likely, but I think it's going to be very close to solidly. I think it's going to be likely. I mean, another state with many parents, with a lot of suburbs, and it's another Democratic state. I mean, it's one of these states that went to Hillary in 2016. I mean, that just shows you that they are going to go to Biden by a large margin without a doubt. Wisconsin, I think, is going to go to Biden by a likely margin. I mean, Michigan, I think, has a possibility of going to Biden by a solid margin. I really do. If we go back to 2008, I mean, sure, Obama is an African American. He won many African Americans' votes. But against McCain, who's an acceptable moderate, Obama wins. And sure, that's a long time ago, 2008, but he wins by a solid margin against McCain. Then think about Biden, who's, less popular than Obama, against whatever her name, Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean, these states, Pennsylvania as well, these are going to be likely for Biden. These will not be close states at all. All 3 are going to go to Biden by a likely margin. So many Republicans are going to stay home, and so many Democrats, too, against a neoliberal Republican like Larry Hogan, against Larry Hogan, many of these Democrats will stay home. But against Marjorie Taylor Greene, they do not want Marjorie Taylor Greene so much that they will turn out for Biden, even if they don't like him very much. Maine 2nd, I do think, would be very close, but I think it's going to go tilt for Marjorie Taylor Greene. Sure, Obama won it by a likely margin in 2012, but I mean, it shifted for Trump 10%, and then it goes 7%. It didn't shift left to much, but I mean, I think this would definitely be a toss-up. This is a district that can go either way, in a matchup of Biden versus Taylor Greene, but I'll give it to Greene. It's going to be a tilt margin. Just the little they shifted to the left shows that they accept Trumpian ideals. So that's why I will give it to Marjorie Taylor Greene by a tilt margin. Going down to Florida, I'll get to Florida. Let me go to North Carolina. I think North Carolina will go lean for Biden. I'm not going to make it likely just because Marjorie Taylor Greene will turn out Republicans in the South. Because we have to remember this: Republicans in the South are more radical than Republicans in the North, or Republicans in the West, or Republicans in the Midwest. Well, that's not necessarily true, the Midwest. But they are very radical in the South. Nothing against them, but they are. It's as simple as that. And many more Republicans will turn out for Marjorie Taylor Greene in the South than they will in the North. I'm just saying that. So I do think that it's going to go to Biden, and I think it's going to be close to 5%. I really do. But yeah. Now, going to Georgia, I meant to make this a tab to look at it so I could show you, or a different page to show you. But if you go where Marjorie Taylor Greene won her congressional seat, it is the most red district as you can get. It's right in the northwestern corner of Georgia. It's really conservative. It's very Republican. It's not a swing district at all. It's right here. It's very rural. Republicans are expected to win here every single time. Marjorie Taylor Greene just happened to be nominated. So that is not anything special about her. Her congressional win shows nothing like she's a good campaigner or anything, or she can win elections. I think Georgia will go lean for Biden. Her win here shows nothing. And being from your home state is proving to be less and less important as it was back in American history. Florida's very tough, because it is so radical. But Marjorie Taylor Greene, there might be, it goes to Trump by 3.7%, 3.4% in 2020, and it goes to him by 1.2%. So it shifts to the right. But there will be, in every single state, even radical Republican states like North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida, there will be a few Republicans who will stay home for Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's as simple as that. There will be a few. I think Biden might be able to carry the state of Florida. It's going to be tilt either way, whether it goes to Biden or Greene. But ultimately, I do think that he would be able to narrowly carry it. So Joe Biden wins in a landslide, an official landslide, because he surpasses 400 electoral votes. So he gets 406 electoral votes to Marjorie Taylor Greene's 132. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, and I hope you view my next video. Thank you.